So picture this. You are sitting at a crowded restaurant, right?
Yeah, we've all been there.
Right, and your friend across the table is talking, but their voice sounds like it's underwater, completely drowned out by the silverware clinking, the background music, the chatter from other tables.
And you're just nodding along.
Exactly. You're pretending you caught what they said, but really you're just straining to hear. You might think your ears are failing, but what if you aren't going deaf at all? What if your brain is just running out of the specific nutritional fuel it needs to filter out that background noise?
It is a terrifying feeling when those subtle shifts start happening. And because hearing loss is usually invisible, we tend to, well, we ignore it until that crowded restaurant scenario becomes our everyday reality.
We take it completely for granted.
We really do. I mean, we treat our vision like a precious commodity, right?
Yeah.
Getting pillarized glasses and laser surgery. But we completely ignore our auditory system.
Which is exactly why we are jumping into this today. Welcome to the deep dive. We are looking at a really fascinating breakdown titled The Nutritional Blueprint for Auditory Vitality and Hearing Support.
It's a great read.
It really is. It's a comprehensive look at the ingredients inside a liquid hearing support formula called ECHOXEN. But we aren't here to just read a supplement label to you.
No, definitely not.
Our mission today is to look past the bottle and understand the actual biology happening inside your head. What do these vitamins, minerals, and plant extracts really do for the delicate microscopic machinery that allows you to process sound?
To even begin to answer that, we have to completely reframe how we think about hearing.
Yeah.
Most people assume hearing is an isolated event that just, happens in the ears.
Right.
But the reality is that auditory function relies on a massive, complex, systemic network.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I definitely think of the ear as just a highly sensitive, top-of-the-line microphone. Sound goes in, and somehow I hear it.
The microphone is a great starting point, but a microphone alone doesn't actually hear anything. Think about a recording studio.
Right.
You have the microphone, which in our body represents the delicate sensory hair cells in the cochlea. Their only job is to take a physical vibration in the air and translate it into an electrical signal.
Got it.
But for that studio to work, you also need the massive cables to carry the audio feed. Those are your nerve pathways. You need a heavy-duty power supply keeping the whole building online, which is your cardiovascular system and cellular energy production. And finally, you need the soundboard and the producer to mix, filter, and interpret the track.
And that is your brain.
Exactly.
So as you are listening to us right now, I want you to imagine the sheer biological effort it is taking for your body to simply process these words. It is an absolute symphony of cellular activity. But here is the catch.
A big catch.
Yeah. Cellular energy production is kind of like running a high-performance engine. It generates power, but it also creates a dangerous, hot exhaust.
We call that exhaust free radicals. And the damage they cause is known as oxidative stress.
Right.
Since the inner ear is constantly on, working relentlessly to process every hum of a refrigerator or every car driving by, it requires a massive supply of oxygen and energy.
Because it's never resting.
Exactly. And because of that heavy workload, it generates an enormous amount of those free radicals.
I used to think of oxidative stress as like a kind of biological rust building up over time.
It's actually much worse than rust. Rust implies a slow, passive decay. Free radicals are incredibly unstable molecules that actively and aggressively steal electrons from your healthy cells.
Oh, wow. So they attack.
Yes. If you don't have enough antioxidants acting as a biological coolant, that exhaust literally scorches the microscopic hair cells in your cochlea, as well as the tiny micro blood vessels feeding them.
Which explains why the first major category of nutrients in hearing support formulas like ECHOXEN are heavy-hitting antioxidants.
They're the coolant system.
Right, preventing the engine from overheating and burning out the microphone.
They basically step in and voluntarily give up their own electrons to neutralize those free radicals before they can damage the delicate sensory tissues.
So let's look at a couple of these specific coolants, starting with vitamin C. Now, most people, myself included, think of vitamin C strictly for immune support, like chugging orange juice when a cold is coming on.
Yeah, that's the classic use.
But for hearing, it's doing something incredibly structural. It's tied to collagen production.
Most people associate collagen with wrinkle-free skin or joint health, right? But inside your inner ear, collagen helps form literal trampoline-like membranes.
Trampolines?
Yeah. When a sound wave enters your ear, it hits these membranes, and they need to vibrate with extreme precision.
So if you are lacking vitamin C and your body can't maintain that collagen, what happens to the trampoline?
It loses its elasticity, it gets stiff.
Hmm.
And if that trampoline gets stiff, the physical vibration is dampened. The sound literally bounces off or gets muffled before it can even be translated into an electrical signal.
So vitamin C maintains the physical housing of the machinery so those vibrations can travel smoothly.
Exactly.
That makes so much sense. And then alongside it, we have vitamin E, which specifically defends cell membrane integrity.
Think about those tiny sensory hair cells again. They're encased in delicate lipid or fat-based membranes. Free radicals love to attack lipids.
Okay.
If those membranes get scorched and compromised, the entire cell can die. And the scary part about sensory hair cells in humans is that once they die, they do not grow back.
Wow.
Yeah. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant, meaning it perfectly embeds itself into those membranes to act as a physical shield against free radical attacks.
Okay, so antioxidants are protecting the physical machinery of the microphone. But if we go back to our recording studio analogy, what keeps the cables connected and the electrical grid running?
Right, because translating a sound vibration into an electrical impulse that the brain can read is entirely a neurological event.
Which requires a highly specific nutritional power grid.
Yes, and what's fascinating here is that this grid is primarily driven by B vitamins.
Let's look at vitamin B12 first, because researchers have specifically studied the relationship between B12 levels and hearing performance, especially in older adults.
B12 is absolutely critical for the health of your myelin sheaths. The myelin sheath is essentially the thick rubber coating that insulates your nerve fibers.
Just like the rubber insulation around a literal copper wire.
Exactly like that. If your B12 levels drop, which happens frequently as we age because our bodies become less efficient at absorbing it, that rubber insulation starts to degrade and fray.
And what happens to the signal?
When the auditory nerve tries to send the electrical sound signal from the ear to the brain, the signal shorts out along the way. It leaks.
So if you've ever felt like your hearing is perfectly fine in a quiet room, but completely falls apart the second a TV is on in the background, that might not be a problem with your ears at all.
Right.
It might be those poorly insulated nerve pathways struggling to handle a high-traffic, complex signal.
That is a phenomenal way to look at it. The microphone is picking up the sound perfectly, but the frayed cable is garbling the transmission before it reaches the soundboard.
Wow. And then we have vitamin B6, which supports neurotransmitter production. How does that fit into the cable analogy?
Nerves aren't just one long, continuous wire. There are tiny gaps between them called synapses. To get the electrical signal across that gap, your body uses chemical messengers called neurotransmitters.
Okay.
Think of them as ferry boats carrying the sound signal across a river.
And B6 provides the raw materials to build those boats.
Without adequate B6, the shipyard shuts down. The sound signal reaches the edge of the auditory nerve and just piles up on the shore, unable to cross the gap to the next nerve.
To complete this triad, we have folate, or vitamin B9. This one is tied to healthy circulation, right?
Yes. This goes back to the fact that the inner ear is incredibly demanding and needs a relentless, non-stop supply of oxygen delivered through the bloodstream.
And the microcirculation in the ear relies on microscopic blood vessels.
Sometimes only wide enough to let a single red blood cell pass through at a time. Anything that supports healthy blood flow and red blood cell formation like folate is going to be foundational for keeping the studio powered.
So if B vitamins are insulating the cables and building the ferry boats, what is actually generating the electricity flowing through them? I was looking at the list of vital minerals in this formulation, and one really caught my eye: magnesium.
Ah, yes.
I know it's the ultimate biological multitasker involved in hundreds of reactions, but I usually take magnesium to help me sleep. What is it doing in a hearing formula? Is it relaxing the tiny muscles around the eardrum or something?
While it does support muscle function, its primary role in auditory health is actually regulating blood flow and acting as a neuroprotectant.
A neuroprotectant.
Yeah, when your ears are exposed to loud noises, it triggers a massive spike in those dangerous free radicals we talked about earlier. Magnesium helps block certain receptors in the inner ear to prevent overstimulation.
Oh, so it's essentially acting as a volume dampener to protect the nerves from burning out.
Exactly.
I had no idea. But I also have to ask about another mineral on this list: potassium.
Oh, this is a good one.
When I hear potassium, I immediately think of eating a banana to stop a calf cramp after a run. Please tell me what the banana mineral is doing inside my head.
This is arguably one of the most fascinating biological mechanisms in the entire human body. Deep inside the cochlea, there is a specialized chamber filled with fluid.
Okay.
And that fluid has a highly specific, very concentrated amount of potassium. It creates an intense electrical gradient.
An electrical gradient, like a battery waiting to be discharged.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Remember those tiny sensory hair cells? At the very top of each hair, there are microscopic trapdoors.
Trapdoors, got it.
When a sound wave vibrates the fluid in the ear, it physically bends those hairs. That bending action snaps the trapdoors open, and the highly concentrated potassium rushes inside the cell.
Wait, so the potassium rushing into the cell is what actually creates the electrical spark?
It literally generates the voltage. That rush of potassium is the exact moment a physical vibration becomes an electrical brainwave.
That is wild.
Without that precise balance of potassium in the inner ear fluid, the trapdoors open, but nothing happens. The spark is never lit.
The mineral I associate with muscle cramps is literally the spark plug for my hearing.
It's the perfect example of how specific our nutritional needs are.
Yeah.
If that fluid balance is off, the entire auditory system grinds to a halt.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because we've covered the traditional vitamins and minerals, the coolants, the cable insulators, the spark plugs.
Right.
But modern formulas like ECHOXEN are incorporating things you don't typically find in a basic multivitamin. They use plant extracts, polyphenols, amino acids, and adaptogens.
The shift toward these botanical compounds reflects a much more holistic understanding of how hearing actually works in our daily lives.
I have to admit, when I saw adaptogenic herbs on the breakdown, I was confused. Adaptogens are usually marketed to help people deal with a stressful workday or balance their mood. What does my daily stress level have to do with my ability to hear a conversation?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to go back to your soundboard analogy. The brain.
Right.
Hearing is not just a mechanical action in the ear. It is fundamentally a cognitive task.
I think we forget that. We think of hearing as passive.
We do. But think about everything that has to happen after the ear detects the sound and sends that potassium spark electrical signal down the B vitamin insulated nerve.
Okay.
Your brain has to receive that signal, interpret it, recognize it as human speech, decode the language, and then here is the hardest part, filter out the environmental noise of the restaurant so you can focus on the person in front of you.
The cocktail party effect.
Yes. And that requires an enormous amount of neurological bandwidth. Now, what happens when you are under chronic stress?
Your cortisol spikes.
Your cortisol levels spike, your mental clarity drops, and your cognitive function degrades. If your brain is exhausted from stress, its ability to process those complex auditory signals efficiently just plummets.
So, struggling to hear my friend across a noisy table isn't necessarily a failure of my ears catching the sound. It's a failure of my exhausted brain lacking the bandwidth to isolate their voice from the music playing in the background.
That is the exact mechanism. Adaptogens are included in these formulas to support mental performance and everyday resilience against stressors. By supporting the brain's ability to handle stress and maintain cognitive bandwidth, you are directly supporting the final, most crucial stage of the auditory pathway.
That reframes everything. The goal isn't just to support the microphone, it's to support the sound engineer who is actively trying to mix the track in real time.
Exactly. And that same logic applies to the inclusion of amino acids and polyphenols. Polyphenols are natural antioxidants found in plants that specifically support brain health and cellular protection.
And the amino acids.
They are the literal building blocks for those neurotransmitter ferry boats we talked about earlier.
They provide the raw materials for the entire communication network. So what does this all mean for you, the listener, in your daily routine? The biochemistry is fascinating, but how are you supposed to actually deliver all of this to your body? You can't just eat a massive pile of raw adaptogens, bananas, and vitamins every morning.
That brings up a major shift in how these nutrients are being packaged. Traditional supplements have almost always been large pills or capsules. But formulations like ECHOXEN are utilizing a liquid multi-nutrient approach.
A liquid dropper.
Yes. Liquid formulas are gaining significant popularity for a few very practical reasons. First, they completely bypass the barrier for people who simply hate swallowing large pills.
Makes sense.
Second, they're incredibly convenient to just mix into a glass of water or a morning smoothie.
If you're trying to combine antioxidants, B vitamins, trace minerals, adaptogens, and amino acids to target all these different biological systems at once, that would be a handful of capsules to choke down. A liquid formula just simplifies the habit of taking it.
Habit and consistency are everything with nutritional support. But there is a very crucial caveat that we absolutely must emphasize here. No supplement, liquid or otherwise, is a magic bullet for hearing loss.
Right, you can't just take a dropper of liquid vitamins, go stand next to the speakers at a rock concert every weekend, and expect your hearing to be fine.
You have to protect the machinery from external trauma. Nutritional support is designed to complement a healthy lifestyle, not replace common sense or professional medical care.
There are several non-nutritional habits that are just as vital to consider. Number one, noise protection. Limiting prolonged exposure to loud environments.
Yes.
And this is a massive one for almost everyone listening right now. Keeping your headphone volume at reasonable levels, you are physically scorching those sensory cells and burning through your antioxidant reserves if you blast audio directly into your eardrums all day.
Beyond protection, there is physical maintenance. Staying physically active is critical because, as we discussed, your inner ear needs constant microcirculation.
Right.
If you want efficient blood flow to your head,
Yeah.
your cardiovascular system needs to be strong enough to pump it there.
Stress management is also huge. Practicing meditation, deep breathing, or just making sure you get adequate sleep. That supports the cognitive bandwidth required for your brain to process sound.
Absolutely.
And, of course, eating a generally balanced diet provides a baseline of those nutrients we just spent the last 15 minutes exploring.
It all circles back to the core theme. Auditory vitality is an ecosystem. You can't neglect your physical and mental health and expect your ears to perform flawlessly in isolation.
It really is a massive paradigm shift in how we view our senses. Just to recap the journey we've been on today, we started with the assumption that hearing is just a mechanical thing that ears do.
Right.
But what we've discovered is that it relies on this incredibly beautiful, complex symphony. You have folate and magnesium supporting blood flow. You have potassium acting as the spark plug to generate electrical signals.
You have B12 insulating the nerve pathway so the signal doesn't leak.
Vitamin C maintaining the collagen trampolines. And you have the brain acting as the master soundboard, relying on adaptogens to maintain focus.
When you lay it all out like that, it really highlights how metabolically expensive hearing is, which raises an important question to think about.
What's that?
When you consider just how massive an amount of cellular energy, oxygen, and nutrient reserves it takes simply to process sound, think about the modern world we live in today.
We live in an incredibly noisy, relentless environment.
We are constantly surrounded by traffic, notifications, background music, machinery, open-plan offices. Our brains and our ears are never, ever truly resting.
Because even when you are asleep, your ears are technically still on and listening for danger.
Exactly. So if hearing requires this much specialized fuel, our incredibly loud environments and our stressful on-the-go lifestyles silently draining the very nutritional reserves our bodies need just to process the noise of an average day.
Wow, that is a really provocative thought to leave on. We are basically running the engine at redline all day, every day, just by existing in a modern city and burning through our coolants and spark plugs in the process.
It really makes you rethink how you treat that invisible sense. You wouldn't stare directly at the sun without sunglasses, but we bathe our ears in auditory stress constantly without a second thought.
It's definitely worth considering the hidden biological cost of all that noise.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Hopefully, the next time you're out at a crowded restaurant or even just listening to your favorite song, you'll have a brand new appreciation for the absolute marvel of biology happening inside your head to make that experience possible. Treat your ears and the brain attached to them with a little more care. We'll catch you on the next one.